Welcome to this week's American Roundtable. I'm Bill Strickler.
I'm Al Spry. It's great to be here on Tough TV and Tough TV 38. What do we have, Bill?
Well, we're talking about the latest from President Obama as the transition is happening. And we're going to be talking about chickens and arsenic, on how things have been swept under the rug, I guess you can say, for years.
Also, we'll be talking to Mr. Memory himself, Ron Fry. He has some great techniques that you can use for this show to remember who the heck we are and who the heck you are, and all your friends. You'll be able to remember names and all kinds of things. It's very cool. So much in store on the show. Also, like Trump transition team is doing its thing as well. And we'll have, like you said, arsenic and chickens. Very important that we get this out there to people.
Yeah, it's almost like, what do you eat? I mean, there's bad stuff out about beef. Now it's chicken.
It's the bottom line. And we are bringing it to you every week, right here on American Roundtable. Welcome back to the American Roundtable. Well, let's start with Obama. He's trying to secure the legacy, Bill. He's trying to make people remember good things about him. It starts now. So with less than 2 weeks on the clock now until we have a new president, he doesn't hesitate, according to this, about whether Obamacare will survive once he turns the keys over to Donald Trump. Quote, "I think it will," unquote. He tells ABC News' George Stephanopoulos. It may be called something else if, in fact, the Republicans make some modifications and relabel it as Trump Care. I'm fine with that. Another quote here, "I'm skeptical that they can do it, mainly because for 7 years now, including when we first tried to pass health care, I said to them, okay, if this doesn't work, tell me what does." He concedes that, quote, "It is true theoretically that all progress can be undone, and suddenly 20 million people or more don't have health insurance," unquote. But I think Republicans now are recognizing that may not be what the American people, including even Trump voters, are looking for, which is actually a very good point, Bill. You have this thing rolling out now, insuring 20 million people. Do you really want to say, let's take it away from you now?
Yeah, they're still taking applications, too.
So it's going to be about as tough to get away from this as it is from Social Security. There's just too many people invested in it. And when you're talking about what I believe to be a right, it's a human right to have health care. It's a human right for people to not have to go into hock to preserve their health. And, you know, I've talked a long time about it. And I say, you know, people say it's socialist. Well, so are libraries. It's called single-payer health care. Everyone from Congress gets it. It's paid for through taxes and through the government. And I see no problem with instituting a single-payer health system. What are your thoughts?
Well, the Republicans have a different solution. Then they should have been prepared to come up with something.
And they haven't.
And you just can't have all these people signed up and then pretty much throw them under the bus.
Also, he has advice for Trump, the president does. Quote, "The main thing that I've tried to transmit is that there's a difference between governing and campaigning. So that what he has to appreciate is as soon as you walk into this office after you've been sworn in, you're now in charge of the largest organization on earth," which is also good advice, I think. On his relationship with Donald, he says the two are sort of opposites in some ways, pegging himself as a policy wonk, while Trump, he says, has not spent a lot of time sweating the details. They have confidence in common. It's probably a prerequisite for the job, he says. At least you have to have enough craziness to think that you can do the job. And he also said on the about Trump, he said the day that he is the president of the United States, there are world capitals and financial markets and people all around the world who take really seriously what he says, and in a way that's not just true before you're actually sworn in. We'll have our friend Ron Fry mastering your memory after this on American Roundtable. Welcome back to the American Roundtable on Tough TV and Tough TV 38. So happy to have our guest calling in. It is Ron Fry. He wrote a book about memory and making yours better. It's Mastering Your Memory. Ron Fry, welcome to the American Roundtable.
Thanks so much, Al.
Well, thank you. I wanted to start off this interview by first asking where you're calling from today.
New Jersey. 12 degrees.
You say it's
12 degrees.
It's such an ominous tone. I have some family who live in Edison, but they're currently down here enjoying themselves before they have to head back. But definitely a little chilly. We're having a little chilly time here in Central Florida region. But I'd like to thank you for joining us. Why this book and why now?
Well, I wrote a book called How to Study about 25 years ago, which covered all the things that students had to do. And one of the key components is finding ways to improve their memory. I mean, they got to remember dates and names and Civil War battles and presidents and vice presidents. And most of them have never been taught any kind of memory tricks or any kind of memory techniques in school. So Master Your Memory is not just for them, but also for us older folks, where as we get older, we forget what we're even supposed to remember.
Well, that's the thing. I think even when you're younger, I remember I've had memory issues with names a lot growing up. And even today, I have to hear a name a few times. Of course, your name rhymes with mine, so it's a lot easier, Ron Fry and Al Spry. We could do a show called Fry and Spry, but I don't know about Bill. Would you be all right with that? Bill is a Bill Strickler. It doesn't quite rhyme, but it does begin with S like Spry does.
Yeah, that doesn't quite work.
But I think Freud had something, an issue with people that couldn't remember names, Al.
Is that right?
Freud had something about a lot of people that, especially with names. So I think that. But go ahead.
Well, I think Freud had he dealt with a lot of people with issues.
A lot of people.
But why? Tell me about your background. How'd you become like Mr. Memory and stuff? What did you do?
Well, I graduated from Princeton. I've written now 45 books. And what I discovered when I went to college was all the easy stuff that I had done in high school didn't work anymore. And I really had to go and figure out how the heck to make it through college, which I managed to do, but not easily, because I really wasn't taught any of these techniques, any good ways to study when I was in high school. But, you were mentioning names. What's interesting is we tend to remember faces. The only time we don't remember a face is when it's totally out of context. If you go to the same Starbucks every day and the same barista gives you your coffee every morning, but then you're at a dinner party and you see that same person, it's amazing how easily we forget where we know that face from. We kind of know we know it, but since it's so out of context, it takes us a while. But
that's a good point. That's a good point about context. You expect people to be in certain places, and when they're not, it's almost like I've had that happen to me recently, where I saw someone, but the context was a different party, and she had to kind of remind me who she was. It was funny.
But even if we recognize the face, what's happened is, unless we've repeated the name out loud, unless we've found a technique that attaches the name to that face, we'll recognize the face, but we won't remember the name at all.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is from my own personal knowledge base as well as Bill's. How do you remember names? What's the technique? And I'll never forget you. I'll never forget you for it, because it'll help me out.
Well, when you see the face, first of all, you want to concentrate on the face for just a second and really make it memorable. So if somebody has a slightly large nose, make it a huge schnoz. If they have, big ears, have the ears going down to the floor, or a goatee, have that going down to the floor. Make that face really memorable. And then use any techniques, rhyming, sound-alikes, whatever works, to remember that name and just picture that name then attached to that face. So if it's George Bush.
Let's take this into the next segment, and we'll find out how to do this a little bit more. Thank you so much. Ron Fry wrote a great book about memory called Master Your Memory. We'll have more from him right after this on the American Roundtable on Tough TV and the Tough TV Network.
Welcome back to American Roundtable. This is Bill Strickler.
And I'm Al Spry.
Yeah, so Ron, let's get back to remembering the name. So you pick out something memorable and a big snozola.
I notice that Bill is looking at my nose right now. I just want you to know that.
And that helped with Al. His ears hang down to the ground too, so it was easy for me to remember his name.
Well, I'm 47 now. Things start changing. You know
Yeah.
how it goes. But so then, so you take something now. What's a good rhyme? What's a good thing once you have that feature pictured? How do you use the mnemonic device, or what do you do? You said a rhyming. What's an easy one to use? What's the one that you like to use the best?
Let's use your name because it's pretty easy, Al Spry. Okay, and trying to picture spry like someone, who's extremely athletic. That's a little tough. But spy is pretty easy. And instead of Al, let's do L. So we've got a Mexican spy, El Spy. So hanging from that earlobe is a guy wearing a big Mexican sombrero and looking very, very shifty, and that's our El Spry. And that should remind you of Al Spry.
Wow, that's pretty
How can you tell that
interesting.
from where you are, Ron? I mean, he's sitting here with that sombrero on.
I have a 6-shooter, yes. I like that. So you take whatever the face is, whatever the biggest part of the face, like I look at Bill's face. I'm being very careful here right now when I look at this. But he has a bit of a chin, kind of like from aging, and a little bit of it hangs a little bit. Right?
Al's too much.
But his name is Bill Strickler. So it sounds like sprinkler, right? So I can say, oh, there's a big sprinkler hanging off the bottom of his chin, like something like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Hey, you're good. You trying to up me here and write your own book?
Al's a funny guy.
That's good. I mean, that's great. I'm going to start trying to do that with everybody. And you have to make it like ridiculous so that you remember it.
Ridiculous.
Is that the point?
The more ridiculous it is, the crazier it is. The more X-rated it is. I mean, some of us remember certain things a lot easier than others. The crazier you make it, the easier it is to remember. Some names are real easy. I mean, Axl Rose. Mm-hmm. How hard is it to picture, a big axe chopping off the stalk of a rose?
Exactly.
You're never going to forget Axl Rose, even if you never heard of Guns N' Roses.
No.
There are a lot of geographical names. I mean, Kate Hudson, River Phoenix, Woody Allen, Food, Jack Lemmon, John Candy, Tim Curry. So they really lend themselves to pictures. And the key is, for most people, their visual memory is better than their verbal. So the easier you can picture something, the more you're going to remember it.
Wow, that's a great piece of advice. Tell us about some other memory techniques that you like, say for remembering, say, a phone number.
Well, that's hard to do on the radio, but let me give you an easy.
Okay.
Let me give you an easier one. Any kind of list of words. If I gave you 20 words right now and said, okay, remember them, you might be able to spew back 10, 11, 12. Maybe you're fantastic and can knock off all 20. I guarantee you that half an hour from now, you'd be lucky to remember 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. Here's a way to do it. It's called the loci method or the place method. It was used 2,000 years ago by the ancient Romans. It still works today. Just picture, for example, if you have a front walk to your house, maybe you've got a couple of posts up there, you've got a mailbox, you've got a couple of planters. You don't have to remember those things because you take that walk every day. So you see them every single day. You know where they are. But now the next time you have to remember a list, just start hanging pictures of the things you have to remember on the loci or the places on that front walk. So if you got to remember to get eggs and milk and a chicken, on that first post, have eggs running down the side of the post. On the second, big gallon of milk exploding. In the mailbox, here comes the chicken coming out of the mailbox. Since you don't have to remember the first things, the posts, the planters, the mailbox, it's really easy to just hang something on them, and you can very easily remember 10 or 20 items.
Wonderful. Well, we're talking with Ron Fry. Master Your Memory is the name of his book. It's a great new way to really kind of help your memory. And because we're being hit with, bombarded with so many things, sometimes it's difficult. But we'll give you a few more tips after this on the American Roundtable on Tough TV and the Tough TV Network. Welcome back to the American Roundtable on Tough TV and Tough TV 38. I'm Al Spry.
I'm Bill Strickler.
Great to have Ron Fry here. He wrote a book called Master Your Memory. So, Ron, we talked about mastering names, which, of course, is confounding to a lot of people. We've talked about mastering lists with your loci method, or going from room to room and associating a new idea with a new name or a new word with something that you already have in your house. And now what would be something for phone numbers or numbers that you want to remember? Because I know a lot of people still like to try to do that. So.
Well, numbers are abstract, so they're really hard to remember. Nevertheless, there are memory athletes. I mean, guys who literally, this is what they do. And one of them has already memorized pi to 70,000 digits.
Wow.
Okay. Jerry Lucas, who was a great player for the New York Knicks way back when, he memorized the first 30,000 names and phone numbers in the telephone directory. You don't do that just by repeating the number to yourself over and over again. What you wind up doing is developing a very simple technique of associating each number with a particular letter. And then those letters form words, and those words form stories.
Well, they
So
did that.
if, for
They
example,
did that years ago when they used to say Ulster 93251 or something like that, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's actually a development of that. So if you had to memorize pi, 3.141592, right, 7 places, all you have to remember is my dear tailbone. Why is that? The M stands for 3, the D in dear is a 1, the R is a 4, and you've created 4 simple words to remember 7 numbers. You can very easily create a story of 20, 30, 40 words, and that could represent 100 digits.
So you just pick a letter. So you just pick a letter to stand for a word, for a number, then.
Yeah, but there are very particular letters that you use for each number.
I
1
see.
is always D or T, 2 is N, 3 is M as in Mary. Again, I hate to say it, but you got to buy the book.
Yep, got to buy the book to find out more.
I'll
That's
show
great.
you exactly what letters to use
That's
and how to
perfect.
make any number.
It's a great tease to buy the book because I want to learn the system now. And final words, Bill?
Yeah, Ron, you mentioned Jerry Lucas, who played with the Knicks. He actually memorized the Bible and was on like the $64,000 question once.
Isn't that interesting?
So the guy had an amazing memory.
Well, thank you,
Actually,
Ron
he
Fry.
he had the same memory that you and I have.
There you go. He's just
He
trained
just learned
himself.
the right techniques.
Learn the right.
There
It's
you
all
go.
about technique and the consistent application of such. Ron Fry, thank you. Master Your Memory, available at Amazon and your local bookstore. We will talk to you again sometime, my friend. Thank you, and have a wonderful year.
Thanks so much, Alan Bill.
Well, this is American Roundtable. We'll have more right after this. Welcome back to American Roundtable. The bottom line, the straight dope. We give it to you every Saturday morning at 9 on the Tough TV network of stations across the country. So glad to be here with you, Bill. Let's talk Donald Trump. Donald Trump is cabinet picking who they're going to be in there, who's the cabinet. They're preparing to face public questioning over business conflicts. It seems like they're not going to have an easy time. You know, there's always that honeymoon period when a president gets elected, but I don't know if that's necessarily true anymore. It seems like they're really putting his feet to the fire, and Hollywood isn't being very nice either. If you saw recently on the Golden Globes, everybody was kind of picking on Trump. Your thoughts?
Well, Trump is going to be dealing with a bunch of antagonists in the Senate. They're not going to make it easy for him. They're going to fight him every inch of the way. And this is not going to be a pretty sight when the Democrats are always against Trump. I don't see, as Obama has said, that we're all on the same team and Putin's really the outsider. I don't see a whole lot of teamwork going on right now in Washington.
Well, let me say briefly about this whole thing about Russia and the United States. It seems that, and Rolling Stone has commented on this, and so has Oliver Stone, the director, who's actually a liberal director. He's saying, you know what, always playing the Russia card is not really a good idea. Did Russia have some influence in the election? I doubt it, very doubtful. I think that the story that they're coming out with now about Russia is really kind of a smokescreen, as you would say, to take away from the contents of the emails that were introduced by WikiLeaks. And so let's blame Russia and take everybody's attention off of whatever the emails said. No matter what might be in those emails, let's kind of make everyone's attention on Russia again, because we've been doing that for, 80 years, 90 years, talking about Russia, so that they seem to always be a good scapegoat for things, regardless.
I don't think anyone's saying that what's in the emails is false or they were fabricated.
No.
They just didn't like them coming out.
They just didn't like them coming out, and they're trying to pin it on Russia. And you know what? If Russia did have any role, of course, Julian Assange, they said they didn't, but if they did have any role, I think it was a very minor role. I think elections are won or lost by the issues that face Americans every day.
What gets me on this is we've known about other people hacking into our computers. I have a son-in-law that would sit at a computer all day long trying to hack in the site to see whether they were vulnerable. So how come we weren't prepared for this Even if Russia was hacking, how come we weren't prepared for it?
Also, arsenic in chicken, a brief mention of this. 1 bucket of American fast food chicken may exceed the EPA safety limit for arsenic in a glass of drinking water by 2,000%. Purdue is, according to this, the most contaminated. There's been a use of arsenic in feed, it seems, for decades, and now the EPA is finally admitting to it. So just something to think about when you're eating chicken. Know where it's coming from.
Yeah, you can find more about that with Natural News, and you can check out the article.
All right, I'm Al Spry.
I'm Bill Strickler.
We'll see you next week on American Roundtable on Tough TV 38 in Orlando and the Tough TV Network.